Good evening, this is Atmospheric Alex here with yet another severe weather outlook and discussion video for today, for tomorrow, the day after that, and many days after that as well. Talk about a pretty active severe weather pattern starting to set up here across Oklahoma, Texas, and surrounding areas. Let's first get started with our Storm Prediction Center's convective outlook brought to you by WeatherWise. We are seeing a level 2 out of 5 slight risk on the severe weather scale here today, across portions of Nebraska, Colorado, Kansas, Oklahoma, and even Texas. We are noticing a bit more of a heightened tornado risk, across these areas in Colorado, Nebraska, and Kansas, kind of the border area there. We'll be talking about that here shortly with model data. So your tornado risk, like I said, we do have a little bit of a 5% risk within 25 miles of a given point. So that is something to note there for those areas. And to our wind risk, we do have the potential to see over 75 mile an hour winds later on tonight. Across portions of central to eastern Oklahoma, do expect a bit of a bow echo to move through. Basically kind of like a line of severe thunderstorms that bows out like that, and we could end up seeing some widespread wind damage across those areas. And now for our hail risk, two pretty decent sized areas where we could have 2 to 3 plus inch diameter hail later on this evening into the overnight hours. And for tomorrow's outlook, once again, large 2 out of 5 on the severe weather scale. This encompasses portions of Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama here. Your tornado risk for tomorrow, we do have once again another 5% risk. So hey, definitely a bit of a shot of tornadoes coming up over the next few days. Even have a sneaky little 2% up here in Colorado. Those tend to overperform, so we're going to really have to watch out for that. Boundary interaction could aid in maybe a future upgrade, but I wouldn't really count on it just yet. Then moving into your wind risk, a large 15%, not really a chance of over 75 mile an hour winds, and hail, like I said, very large hail is likely. Now moving into our day 3 risk, aka Sunday's risk here, for Oklahoma, Texas, Arkansas, Mississippi, Alabama, portions of Tennessee, same exact areas getting severe weather again. So again, in the threats for wind, hail, and even a couple of tornadoes possibly, out in these areas here in Oklahoma and Texas. We're going to really have to monitor this. And also over the next few days, couldn't really rule out a strong tornado. It's very much of a low chance, but definitely a non-zero. Why not talk about Monday as well? Large 2 out of 5 slight risk on the severe weather scale here, mainly for the DFW metro area, and even outside of that as well, where we could see damaging winds, large hail, very large hail possibly, and even a few tornadoes cannot be ruled out. Now let's take a deep dive into what our storms could be looking like tonight. Timings will be up at the top of the screen as per usual, and as we could see here, we'll start to see supercells fire off across northeast Colorado and even portions of far western Kansas and Nebraska, going into around 4 to 6 p.m. Central tonight and this evening. Look at that there. Definitely talking about some significant issues with those, and this is most certainly where your tornado risk is going to be coming from, any supercells up there. If they can ride a boundary, definitely going to see a tornado, if not even a strong tornado. Not really expected, but definitely a possibility. These could begin to cluster up a little bit more, or we'll have to wait and see on that. Looking further off to the south here into portions of Kansas, we're talking about storms really firing up around 10 p.m. Central to 1 a.m. Central tonight across Goodland, Hayes, Hill City, Salina, Kansas, Topeka, even closing in at Kansas City possibly, and this will continue throughout the night. Very large hail cannot be ruled out in some of these isolated cores in here. Is what we are really going to need to watch out for later on tonight. And this really just continues. Look at Wichita here getting slammed by damaging winds and large hail going into around 2 to 5 a.m. Central Time tonight into tomorrow morning. And then we'll continue to look at Oklahoma in our next frames. Look at Kansas again. More storms possibly firing up tomorrow morning, could be strong to severe. So multiple rounds of severe weather is possible tonight. Could we see an upgrade to an enhanced risk? We'll have to wait and see. Now, down across Oklahoma, do have some storms moving across northeast Oklahoma. Those likely clear out and let the environment reinvigorate itself here. As we go later on into the evening here, look at down in Texas. All right, around 8 to 10 p.m. Central, could see some storms pop up around Lubbock, Hobbs area, even Abilene, it looks like. Definitely damaging winds, large hail with those. And then as we go across Oklahoma, fairly decent explosion of cells. Nothing too significant yet, starting around midnight tonight. And then as we continue to move the clock forward, these spread across OKC, and even some very large hail cannot be ruled out with some of those isolated cores, similar to up in Kansas, like I mentioned before. Now, of course, continuing on through time, you can see some of those wind segments. This one entering northeast Oklahoma looks very intense here. Look at that for sure. You're going to see 70 to possibly 80 plus mile an hour winds. We see a couple model runs even shedding light on up to 90 mile an hour winds across Enid, Tulsa, and even portions of OKC. So you need to stay extremely weather aware tonight, especially around 2 to 7 a.m. Those race on through, very damaging, destructive winds pushing through possibly. What does our environment look like for tonight? Well, as you can see, your supercell composite begins to increase significantly. And as we go on through time, your supercells will form up here in your yellows and oranges. That's definitely a bit favorable. And then down here across Oklahoma, as we forward the clock more into the overnight hours, look at this, some reds and hot pinks. Those cells are going to be in a very favorable environment. Not quite volatile like some of our models depicted yesterday, but still, don't get it twisted. No pun intended. This environment could be conducive for tornadoes as well. And look at that with your damaging wind risk, some of your reds and hot pinks there, so certainly going to be suitable for significant severe weather tonight. Look at that using up our environment. How about tomorrow's risk? You see your damaging winds blow through quickly, more storms possibly forming around Fort Smith around 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. Then we see across Oklahoma maybe a couple more rounds. Going down across Texas, could see some supercells down here. Nothing too tornadic, it looks like as of now, but certainly very large hail out of those cells around 6 to 9 p.m. tomorrow night. And then here you go. You start to see it here. Very, very large hail moving into Tulsa possibly. And look at Medicine Lodge out here. Extreme explosion of supercells everywhere. And yeah, oof, bring your cars in your garages, please, or under a carport. This hail is not to be messed around with. We were talking about upwards of over 70 dBz on your color scale over here. Very heavy precipitation and tons of hail is likely. Not expected, but certainly likely. And these rounds just continue here from like 1 to 8 a.m. Central tomorrow night. That is going to be cooking. And this through here, my goodness, lots and lots of hail. Could see an upgrade to an enhanced risk for severe weather if that continues. Down across Arkansas, you see in the morning that line of storms pushing through. And then going even further off to the east here, Tupelo, Greenwood into Mississippi here, going to be getting absolutely hammered by tomorrow afternoon and tomorrow evening here. And anything after that could even squeeze its way into Arkansas as well later on into tomorrow night and to Sunday morning. And then as we continue looking even further east, because this is a big risk area, look at this nice little Boeing segment here. Could see upwards of 70 mile an hour winds with features like that if they do form across, say, Birmingham, Tuscaloosa, Montgomery, Alabama. So certainly going to be something to watch for, as there's just too much going on, right? And then more cells pushing on through, going on into later tomorrow evening into tomorrow night. I sound like a broken record at this point, my goodness. But anyways, as we look at our supercell composite values here, definitely going to be talking about quite the environment across Oklahoma. That is no surprise. Over here across Mississippi, Alabama, also seeing it too with your orange colors. And Arkansas, not nearly as significant, so that is some good news. But that's after your environment gets taken up in the morning, a little more favorable. But besides that, you can see your storms really taking up part of your environment here across western and southwestern Oklahoma here. Definitely in a good environment. And just some remaining stuff out here if anything forms. It's really going to be a nowcasting situation for some of these areas. Definitely. And these will continue throughout the night using up a good portion of our environment. And your wind shear starts to crank as well with your black flags. Tornado risk will be on the increase. And that is literally where your 5% tornado risk has been drawn. So That's kind of funny, right? How about Sunday here, where we're talking about some possible supercells and linear segments forming on Sunday afternoon into the evening here across Tulsa, Fayetteville, Arkansas, Fort Smith. Not a forecast too far out. And then look at this down here in Texas. Could we see more cells invigorate? We'll have to see. Down near Lubbock, Amarillo, Wichita Falls, some of these Boeing segments, very damaging winds are possible out of those. And across Oklahoma here, again, this model does not go far enough out to see the rest of everything, but certainly going to be talking about severe weather across this area here, and give or take outside of that as well. How about Arkansas? Same song and dance, it seems like, from Saturday. Look at that. Severe weather possibly moving through Little Rock. I will not specify timings. It's too far out. And then look at that. A lot of stuff going on across Mississippi, Tennessee, and Alabama that we're really going to have to watch for damaging winds, large hail, couldn't even run a stray tornado as well, especially further west. Then further east, again, wow, I mean, with just the same areas, right? Look at that, supercells fire up. Nothing really out here as of yet, but that could really change fast. Here, ingredients here across your main risk area. My goodness, there's just so much going on, isn't there? You can definitely see a well-delineated boundary setting up here. Tornadoes are possible along that, no doubt. And then even back here, we have a ton of different boundaries interacting with that one area. You see a boundary here. You see, it looks like a boundary here, and even some stuff up here combining into one specific area where we could see a potential strong tornado risk develop. Again, it's going to be very localized, but we could see something of the sort. Those supercells move through. Again, we're going to have to watch those areas for sure. And then really just heightened parameters in isolated areas across the rest of the risk area. Well, how about Monday? It's the risk that never ends, right? Talking about more storms firing up in eastern Oklahoma, portions of Arkansas here, and even going back over here. This might lift a little further north into Kentucky, southern Illinois, southern Indiana possibly, and even Missouri a little bit going on into Monday afternoon. And then Monday evening, look at that. Could definitely see some supercells firing up across Alabama, Mississippi, Tennessee, Oklahoma, and even into Texas. Very well defined down here could develop. So going to have to watch out for a tornado risk in every single one of these storms here, but most importantly, damaging winds and large hail. Oh, and one more thing. Look at up here in Colorado. Very well-defined supercells, and we're just going to have to watch for maybe a brief significant tornado, possibly. Definitely not a forecast. Definitely cannot be ruled out either. It's a non-zero chance in mesoscale days like this. Your parameters go like this. Well, you could definitely see them here in your orange and red colors, so supercells can fire in that environment. And a bit of a boundary forming here, something else out here, and that looks pretty favorable over there. Like I said, just all these little boundaries. The word of the day is boundary, believe it or not. I mean, gosh. And up here in New Mexico and Colorado, again, just seeing those backed surface winds. Got your boundary here, wind shifting, and it just looks like a tornado environment. Then, of course, out here in Mississippi, Alabama, just some weaker parameters, but they're definitely evident. How about for the rest of everything after that? Well, Tuesday, some supercells forming here. Supercells, that's a bit of an understatement. My goodness, these are motherships out here. Absolutely insane looking cells. Going to have a really beautiful and crazy structure to them as well, I'm pretty sure. And those move on through. Going on into Wednesday, same thing. Thursday, I mean, pretty much the same thing. Friday, probably the same thing. It's just day after day after day after day of severe weather in the form of supercells across the Great Plains. It just feels like a May out there, doesn't it? It's what's supposed to be happening at this time of year. Then to note on Friday, some cells may breach containment and a severe weather risk maybe could occur a little further off to the east, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see. Your parameters here, well, it just goes on and on, like I said. Not really too heightened, I will say that, but you still have some orange colors trying to peek through. We could see these uptrend as we get closer to these mesoscale isolated events. And with that being said, thank you so much for tuning into today's video. That was an awful lot to go over, and I tried to move as fast as possible so you all aren't going to get bored at all. At least I hope you didn't, because that would kind of ruin the purpose of this video, right? If you did enjoy it, please be sure to smash the like button, subscribe to my little corner of the weather community, and share with some friends and family on social media if you wish, so they can stay informed. Out here, even further east, the shading of red should have been a lot further east, but well, things uptrended a bit, and that's what wound up happening. Well, hopefully you all out there stay weather aware, and have a wonderful night, everyone. I will see you all in the next video.